there seems to be in every charitable aspect that I've done, community purpose, whatever it is, somehow the universe provides an economic opportunity that just provides more money that can give back. This is Entrepreneurs the Playbook, where I give you access each week to the world's greatest athletes and executives about their personal and professional playbook and what has made them champions on and off the field. This is the Playbook. David Meltzer, CEO of Sports One Marketing, here with Entrepreneur the Playbook, and I have one of the first nonprofit playbooks, which I've been inspired to do, and I'm glad it's with this issue, Jeremy Mahugh with DeliverFund. Jeremy, one of the biggest, I call it a critical business issue, because any socially impactful problem in America has an economic effect.
Sure.
A big economic effect, and it can be negative, but it also can create opportunities. And I really want to explore. This is near and dear to my heart. I have 3 teenage daughters and an 8-year-old son, and most people don't realize the extraordinary problem we have with human trafficking.
Sure.
And how it occurs. You have a great military background, Navy SEAL, variety of special ops. We're not messing with you, Jeremy, but tell me how you start a nonprofit like DeliverFund, and all the different opportunities that exist while you're a compassionate capitalist, meaning you're saving lives.
Sure. It's a lot of questions.
Yeah,
right there.
Exactly.
Right?
That's the whole podcast.
Yeah, man, it's really starting a nonprofit when you know nothing about nonprofits and you don't have any money, because there's stuff out there where you pay $20,000 and you get like the package, but when you have $0 and you come from a background that's like, well, we were more like spies than we were nonprofit people.
Right.
And so, we kind of stumbled along for quite a while, but it's just like a business. It's like a startup of any kind, right? You're working out of your garage, you're selling some of your toys to try and fund the things that you need to do to make those next steps.
Why were you so passionate about it? I mean, entrepreneurism, has to have this passion. Like you live. I was just with Gary Vee, and he's like, you don't even ask me that question. Why I'm inspired? Because I live, eat, and breathe this stuff. Why did this become such a big issue for you?
Well, at the end of the day, we're bringing hope to a situation that was hopeless before, right? The reason I got involved with this was because my friend Nick McKinley, who's our CEO, he was a special agent with the CIA. Prior to that, he was a pararescueman for the Air Force. So he already kind of has rescue in his nature and background. But he worked at a lot of different levels, doing programs at all different levels of our government. And he started telling me about this program. And I said, well, wait a minute. Surely somebody out there is already doing this. Surely there's an agency, a department, an organization. And we sort of had the ability to look into the deepest parts of the government and say, well, what's out there? And nobody was doing this, and not on an efficient and a productive model. And so we had the skills, and so really Nick set out to do it, and I just said, you're talking about girls that are 13, 14 years old is the average age of girls that are being trafficked, and originally we were looking at we had kids that were being trafficked out of the U.S. into other countries. So we thought, well, great, we'll go rescue them, we'll bring them back, make sure they're taken care of. And then when we really started to look at it, and we realized the epidemic that it was in the U.S., and it's actually the American dollar and it's the American male that drive sex trafficking around the world. So what better place to focus than here at home in our own neighborhoods and our own cities, and when we attack it here, that impacts the rest of the world as well. And it's a lot cheaper for us to do that here.
Absolutely.
So
why do you think the numbers have been so hidden, or you don't really hear about it? Why is that?
It's interesting. I have conversations and I speak on this issue, and 5-6 months later people go, wow, since I heard you talk about it, now I see it everywhere, I hear it everywhere. So one, I think, is just getting in tune with listening to it, and seeing it and acknowledging it. One of the things that happens also is, if it was your daughter, would you want it in the news? Probably not, right? If that happened to your daughter, if she was abducted and you were able to get her back. There's a story from Dallas, and they called it, they made a movie about it called 8 Days. And this girl was 16 years old. She was lured. She had a boyfriend that her parents weren't real fond of. Yeah. So he can come to the house, but you can't really go out with him. He would come to the house, and eventually he talked her into going out to a party, high school party. Kids give her drugs, And then the next thing you know, they basically hand her over to some other people who then rape her, who then sell her to traffickers. And then she gets moved from there down to Houston. And within 8 days, she's raped 60 times. So, and it was a fairly prominent family. And the reason they were able to get her back that quick is because they had some political clout and connections and were able to push on that. And so Homeland Security ended up pulling her out of a hotel and getting her back. But that's the trauma that's involved with that point, and the therapy that is needed, and like nobody wants to put that on the front page, right? So sometimes we just catch these little blurbs of like, oh, somebody was arrested for, alleged this or that. And it kind of just goes by and that's it. We don't really understand the scale of the problem. The other problem is, I think we're only seeing maybe in the news the tip of the iceberg, because after all, it's an illicit market, right? So it's something that's happening in the shadows and underground, and the internet's allowed it to be hidden.
And there seems to be other illegal activity that's always connected to that.
100%. We tell law enforcement, we tell donors to our nonprofit, everybody, like, if you want to fight all of these other crimes, even if it's big crimes like guns and narcotics, it's almost always tied to human trafficking somehow. And even around the world too. We were just talking about this the other day, like a lot of the briefs that we would give if we were in Afghanistan or Iraq and we're going after a bad guy, be like, oh, this guy's like, selling opium and this and that, and then kind of a subline on the bottom is like, oh, and he's selling 13-year-olds to everybody. But we don't really give that any credit. Like, we're focused on all the other issues. Well, why is that?
Are most of the children that are abused and trafficking, are they mostly forgotten kids that are somehow don't have a secure structure around them?
I think that 10 years ago, yes. The foster care system is there's a big issue there. Runaway kids that are just on the street, there's a lot of that. I think they say within 48 hours of a child running away from home, there's like 85% that they'll be approached by a trafficker. I mean, that's crazy high.
Wow.
So there's bad people, predators out there just looking everywhere. Now what we see those same kind of people where there's spotters. They actually call it a spotter, who's like hanging out in the mall, just looking for, and even to look to start to build a relationship with. And sometimes it happens over time, where they have, even if it's a girl who's like 14, 15 years old, maybe it's a 17, 18-year-old boy. It's not that crazy to have that kind of relationship, but like he's building that relationship, but all because he's being paid and being driven by a trafficker to then turn that girl over. And sometimes it's a 4 to 6 month time. But what we're seeing is traffickers are becoming a lot more brazen, and the reason is because money, right? Everything is driven by the dollar. But if a trafficker can get, and this is pretty common in the U.S., $100,000 per victim, and they're running 3 to 5 victims, and that's tax free, right? They're not paying taxes on that. They're buying heroin and some Happy Meals to keep that person fed and alive, and on the leash, if you will. So if you're making $500,000 a year, right? Tax free, you become pretty brazen, and there's really been no risk. And in the business side of this, I mean, you're a business guy, business coach. What's the thing that we always look at in business? Everything is risk versus reward, right? So DeliverFund comes in on the opposite side of that, and we say we're going to insert risk.
Right.
Where you're trying to take risk out, we're trying to insert risk because we're trying to eliminate that business, right? Take it out,
right,
and dismantle it. And so we're putting risk in all different ways, and we can do that through a variety of factors. One is finding where the traffickers are, locating them, and getting them arrested and held accountable, which hasn't been happening. And I can tell you why that is.
Seizing their fund, right? When you can seize their funds, there's great risk.
You can seize their funds, but at the end of the day, these guys have been getting away with it because there's been no risk to their business model, and so there's a huge amount of money, and of course they're going to start to do abductions. I hear stories all the time where mom is in the Target store, and they're with her daughter and has another daughter just down the aisle, and somebody starts to kind of talk to that daughter, and she gets that spidey sense where she's like, I need to go get over here right now.
Yeah.
Well, they go check the video camera, the security cameras, and that guy's been in there for 2 hours. And there's actually 2 guys that are up front by the doors, just kind of on their phones, and they've been in there for 2 hours. So it's pretty clear that they're up to some nefarious activity. Right?
Absolutely.
So those risks are out there for our kids, and we live in a different world than we grew up in, right?
Yeah.
So,
And on the technology side as well,
Yeah.
which is nice because we can move quicker to counteract these things. And technology is a big part of what you do.
it's a huge part. Matter of fact, we're at a pinnacle in history right now where slavery's been around forever, and prostitution's been around forever. But we're at a point now where we can really identify what is human trafficking even versus prostitution. But we can because it's being sold online, and because we have intelligence tools to root out and figure out who's behind those advertisements, and also track where they're being sold. I mean, sometimes you see a girl that's sold in 5 different states. You think she's doing that on her own? No, right? Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's clearly being driven.
And you've had some great success. I'm a big karma guy. You know,
Yeah.
I believe everything comes full circle. I can see so many different things, including my last book, How to Create the Life You Love with Jack Canfield. 10 years ago, I dreamed about, meeting Jack Canfield.
Yeah.
And here, we're associates and collaborators together. You had an extraordinary story that you shared with me about, the back, is it?
Backpage.
Yeah, Backpage.
Yeah. So for those of you who know who Backpage or know what Backpage.com was, probably shame on you. but
Good for me, because I didn't know.
Yeah. So Backpage.com was a website that was the largest purveyor of sex advertising, and they did that as escort ads. But within escort ads, let's call it what it is. Like most of that's probably prostitution. As a society, we don't really prosecute. We don't really go after prostitution that much. But for a percentage of that is human trafficking, and then a percentage of that is of minors, right? So I was telling you the story about when we were helping to make this this documentary called I Am Jane Doe. It was about 3 victims who were underage, and they were sold through Backpage, and so they were suing Backpage. It's the whole legal battle around that. But when we were filming for that, we actually submitted an ad on Backpage, a fake ad, and we said it was for a 13-year-old, and it autocorrects to 18, right? So it can't be technically illegal. But they were found, they got their headquarters seized back in April of last year. They got seized by the feds. And DeliverFund was one of the intelligence sources that helped to make that happen. So the feds seized their building. The cool story about that is as we've been moving our headquarters to Dallas, and their headquarters was in Dallas, turns out there's available rented space. And so we just finished that contract, and,
Nice.
and next month we move into that building. So when we train, equip, and advise law enforcement from all around the country to take down human traffickers, we're doing it from the very space in which they were guilty of trafficking humans.
That's
online.
amazing. No, what should people know about human trafficking? So, I'm a big believer in the tree has no branches, that everybody's connected.
Sure.
And the more that we're aware of things, the more we can help,
Sure.
even if we don't know anything. What should we be looking for?
Well, I think, you've got 4 kids, right?
Yeah,
3
3
daughters. So they all have cell phones, smartphones. Traffickers are using those technologies to try and come after our kids, to start, chats. And even we had a case recently with, I won't say the name of it, but it was a gaming type of station.
Where you can interact,
right? Yeah. And so they don't, as parents, do we know who's on the other side of those conversations? Because this young boy actually was getting a conversation where he was getting lured into a situation, right? And so it can be coming at us from everywhere. And so we just really need to have those conversations with our kids. They need to realize that 1, there's evil in the world, and 2, they need to keep their head up and on a swivel and be aware. And then also, I think that a lot of times we talk about telling the kids' friends, because if one of your daughters is like infatuated with this
Right.
person, or thinks that, will she listen to you? Hopefully, because you're your dad. But like a lot of kids don't listen to their parents, but they'll listen to their friends, or their friends can come and tell you like, hey, your daughter is talking to somebody that she shouldn't be, and it's going in a bad place because it doesn't. Yeah, there's abductions, but a lot of times it happens over time.
Right, and it's a strategic thing. It's interesting. When I ran the sports agency with Lee Steinberg, we called it spheres of influence.
Sure.
So if we were going after an athlete, we would never talk to the athlete. We
Sure.
talked to his coach. We talked to everyone around the athlete,
Right.
because we were creating a situation that when it came time, everybody around him was telling him, "Oh, Lee Steinberg, Jerry Maguire, you got to sign with Lee, Warren Moon, right?" The stories were all around them. So I think it's really
grassroots campaigning there.
Yeah, and I think we can do that to protect.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting,
For sure.
really, really interesting. Last question. As things evolve, you didn't get into this at all to make money.
Right.
But there seems to be in every charitable aspect that I've done, community purpose, whatever it is, somehow the universe provides an economic opportunity that just provides more money that can give back.
Yeah.
Do you see that transition from the nonprofit that you may eventually get to being able to make this an entrepreneurial thing where you guys can generate income to create acceleration in what you're doing and give more money back?
Sure, absolutely, 100%. We've set out from the beginning. Nick McKinley, our CEO and founder, and I came along kind of at the beginning there, so I'm technically co-founder. But we very much fundraising's hard. It sucks, right?
You gotta ask.
You got to ask, and everybody's asking for money. Everybody has a handout. Yeah, we have an extremely impactful mission, but there's other good causes out there too that people care about. So the way to create a revenue generation model is something that we've been wanting to do from the beginning. So we are putting I almost said a plethora of things together, but a lot of different revenue streams where we can do that. We're moving into a field where we can work with banks because we have the best data banks on human trafficking in the world. Wow. And so we can work with banks, we can work with pretty much all industries, whether it's airlines. I mean, we're getting to that point where we're having those conversations. So we don't want to talk too much about the things that we haven't accomplished yet, but that model is there, and there is ways that in 5 or 10 years from now, we may not have to ask for any money, and we'll just have lots of streams feeding that lake, and will allow us to go international and be everywhere and really crush this. And one thing I would say. I usually should start with this probably, but human trafficking is such a epidemic.
How many children are trafficked a year?
So right now we think that according to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, there's about 700 to 800 kids that are reported missing every year, and they think that of that probably about 100,000 are actually trafficking victims, and so. That's massive, but there's well over 150,000 slaves in the U.S. today.
150,000.
Yeah, and that's a very conservative number. And so, one of the studies that was done was over a 5-year period, and it was also done by NCMEC, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. And they said that within that 5-year period, suspected trafficking of minors for sex in the U.S. went up 846%. And again, like the internet and the smartphones has allowed that to happen.
Sure.
To the point where really you could order a child for sex on an app, kind of like you order a pizza, and have them delivered to your hotel room.
Well,
so that's, but the thing that I should have led with is that despite how bad that is, like we have a solution, and we firmly believe with the proper funding, we can drive that market down by 80% in the next 5 to 7 years.
That's incredible. And so this is my first playbook nonprofit version, and I'm blown away. And
thanks for having me.
I just really am so grateful that there's people on earth that take a problem that exists that may not have an economic gain for a long time, but has a significant impact on the world. When you can save hundreds of thousands of kids, think about the ripple effect. And I just am so grateful. I hope this encourages everybody that you can have an entrepreneurial spirit within the nonprofit world, be a philanthropist, be kind to your future self, do good deeds. This is Dave Meltzer with Jeremy Mahugh. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Entrepreneurs, the Playbook.